All right, well, welcome everybody. We're here today to hear from our external evaluation team about their findings so far and planned activities. And so I'll pass it off to Candace Ogletree to lead us in.
Okay. Well, hello again, everybody. Like you said, my name is Candace Ogletree. I am part of the external evaluation team. I'll do a little introduction of who else is on my team, and so you can match some of our pictures to the faces that are on here. It looks like we have a really good mix today of faculty, advisory board, those specialists on there, as well as trainees and students in the program as well. So this is great because I think our evaluation really is meant to assess the program on multiple levels. And our audience for this evaluation is really all of you guys. So it's really great to see all these different faces today. I am looking forward to your questions. So without further ado, I'm going to get started setting up the presentation, and then we can just dive right into that. Let me share my screen. And then let's present. Okay. Of course, introduction, this is the BU Urban Program Evaluation presentation just on kind of what we're doing. So we're going to give you a little bit of an introduction to what program evaluation is, how it's specific to the BU Urban program, and then some of the evaluation progress and activities that we have to date. Like Evan mentioned, we're also going to kind of briefly look at our next steps. And then we have a good amount of time open at the end for questions. We're really looking forward to answering your guys' questions, see what sort of areas about the program evaluation that you guys find interesting or that you just have general interest in. So without further ado, let's do a little intro to our team. So Tariq Azam, he is leading the project. He is our director of the Center for Evaluation and Assessment through UC Santa Barbara. And then Natalie, Kathleen, and I, you actually might have seen us on campus if you've been with the program for a few years. So we've come out to Boston a couple of times to do interviews with first-year students and some of the older students as well. We've also, we were on campus and presented to previous external advisory boards as well. And just we have been around here and there. So if this is not your first year, you might have seen us. But if this is your first year, welcome, hello. You hopefully will see us around a little bit more, at least remotely, for at least the next year. So, and I believe both Natalie and Kathleen are on the line too. So I wanted to do a little exercise. I know we have a breadth of people on here and a breadth of backgrounds. I wanted to know what is one word that first comes to mind when you think of the words program evaluation. Now, we originally had an interactive poll set up where you guys could follow this link and type in, and it would make a pretty word cloud. Unfortunately, I lack the technology to do that. So I was hoping that you guys can put it in the chat, just what's a word that comes to your guys' mind. And I can like read some of them out and get a sense of what people think of when they think of program evaluation. So I'll give you guys just a couple of seconds, 5, no, I'm kidding, to get some words out there. So monitoring, measurement, improvement, survey, efficacy, effectiveness, improvement again. Okay, so some of these seem a little bit methods focused, some of them seem goal oriented. Accountability, I would say accountability is a huge part of a lot of program evaluation that's being done, making sure that, you know, what we say what a program says that they're doing is actually being done, that it's actually tying to outcomes. Yeah, keeping it on track, learning, change. Yeah, a program evaluation is all of these things. So we'll go a little bit into detail. I'll give you some of the more, official definitions that we have and just walk you through it before we go into specifically Urban's program evaluation. So At a high level, program evaluation is a systematic process of thinking and asking or answering questions about the program design, implementation, outcome, and impacts. And so that's basically, we work to design the, or sorry, not design the program, but map out how the program is designed, what these activities are, how they tie to outcomes, and identify ways that we can measure it. It is also a toolkit of approaches and methods to learn assumptions about the program, and it's rooted in social science methodology. So one thing about program evaluation is that it is very flexible. We sometimes use quantitative methods, we use qualitative methods, we use both. We use different approaches in different areas to give us the flexibility to really research and evaluate the program in the way that's the best fit for the program itself. So let's talk a little bit more about like why we are so flexible. So program evaluation helps answers questions like, is the program working? You know, this is kind of what you guys were talking about in terms of accountability. You know, is the program doing what it intends to be doing? And for whom does it work best? Is it really targeting the audience that it intends to? Is it really benefiting them? And then what conditions make it work? What is necessary to happen to achieve the outcomes that we desire, that we are looking for? And then, of course, how we can make the program better. Improvement is a really big goal of ours. We have the mentality of like, there's always a way to improve. There's always feedback. There's always another tweak that we can do to make the program the best that it can be. And so program evaluation allows programs to determine the extent that the program is meeting the needs of the community. So the faculty and trainees in this situation, and it's achieving its short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. It also elevates diverse stakeholder and community voices. So we're hearing from the trainees, we're hearing from the faculty, we report to the advisory board of community members, and everybody has a say in the evaluation. And a lot of our findings are meant to kind of give a voice to each of these levels. And then also just cultivate a culture of inquiry and help develop a shared language for measurement. So that's important as well, because, you know, there's a lot of questions of like, how do we know a program is doing well? How do we know that a program is successful? And so through program evaluation, we can develop a plan and a shared understanding of this is what a successful program looks like, and this is how we're measuring it. Of course, also adapt, strengthen, and systematically innovate the program with rigor. So because program evaluation is based in social sciences, we do try to use still rigorous methods. We do use qualitative and quantitative methods. In our surveys that I'm going to talk about later, we really try to pull from validated scales. We really focused on talking about the best timelines for this so that we can measure change over time through the program. So we really try to bring also a level of rigor to program evaluation. And then lastly, all of this really helps to show the funders that the program makes a difference. It helps make it a little bit easier for Urban to get additional funding because you guys have a little bit of data to back up, you know, what your program is doing. So what does this look like for your program, for Urban in particular? So let's go through we have 4 of the 5 W's on here, but why? So we want to help understand what the program is doing, how it can better achieve its goals, and provide data to NSF. So NSF is the grant funder, and you know, we are required on an annual basis to provide information to them, and it provides progress about how the program is performing. You know, again, is it achieving its goals? And it's another level of accountability. And so what do? We document program activities and collect feedback from trainees and faculty through interviews and surveys. Now, this is sort of like a boiled down version of what we're doing. We're going to get a little bit more into some of our program activities and get into a little bit more of the nitty gritty, but on a higher level, this is kind of what we do. We also work with program leadership to develop a plan to collect information and make recommendations for improvement. So while some of you guys might have seen us, I would say most of our work is done with the program leadership. So we work closely with Pam and Evan to provide feedback, to have conversations about the program, about data, and try to make sure that that is happening on a regular basis. And then the timeline for this project, I have said that like you guys might have seen us around, me, Kathleen, and Natalie, because we actually have been working on this project for a couple of years now. And the timeline is from 2018 to summer of 2022. So we still have a little bit more time left with this program as well to collect information and provide feedback to help strengthen it. Now, this developmental evaluation cycle may seem a little bit intimidating. I'm going to walk us through it, but basically this just represents our personal approach to this. This is a developmental evaluation approach, really focuses on providing relevant, timely, actionable feedback to the program itself so that they can make real-time adaptations. So at the top, we can start with regular briefs with program leadership to foster sense making of the data. So sense making is essentially just pulling the data into a conversation, understanding the context around this data. Because us as researchers, we are external. We don't live and breathe this program. Sometimes there are things that we miss, and sometimes all we have are the data itself. And so in order to have these conversations, we create a sense making of like, what does this actually mean? What can actually be done about it? And then that leads us to our next step, which is creating these recommendations that can then be implemented into the program design. So a lot of times these recommendations are co-created. Sometimes our team brings some things that we already have in mind to program leadership. Sometimes program leadership already knows the direction they want to go. And then sometimes we work together to develop and discuss the best solution. So once we decide that to go forward with a recommendation, we revise the program logic model. So again, I think I mentioned this a little bit before. The logic model is just sort of like a flow chart that maps out how the program works. So it documents all of the program activities, and it really establishes a pathway of like how these activities lead to outcomes. And I do have an example of the flow chart that we use for this program at the end of this presentation. It tends to be a little much, so I didn't want to include it here during the presentation, but if you guys are interested in seeing the logic model for BU Urban Program, we can dive into it afterwards, and then so we can follow through on the nitty gritty of, you know, what activities lead to which outcomes, how, and all of that sort of essentially program logic. And then so after we have updated the logic model, these new efforts that we decided to, or the program decided to do, are then added to our evaluation plan. And then we evaluate them. We collect data, we analyze the data, and then we bring it back to to the program leadership, and then just start the cycle all over again. And again, this is meant to make sure that all of this information, all this feedback is timely. This approach helps us make sure that the program is really responsive to the needs, that it's not just 5 years down the line, we deliver this huge report and it's like, oh, this is what we found over the past 5 years. Here you go. This way we can have these regular conversations about what potential changes could happen, what it would mean for the students. And so again, how it benefits you, I kind of talked, and I guess this is the program participants in particular, I kind of talked about this a little bit before, but evaluation helps establish that this is an evidence-based program. And the development that we see, the changes that we see are based on data. So you know when the program they decide to go in a different direction or they decide to make a change, you know you can be comfortable knowing that it's based on an informed decision, a data-informed decision, and that you can feel comfortable knowing that this program, there is a logic to it. There is a backing to why this program is designed the way that it is designed. And again, as I mentioned before, it's responsive to current needs and concerns. So because we have this regular cycle, once we get data, we can hear that maybe students are unhappy with, I don't know, maybe too many of the events are happening on one campus, and we can go back to the program leadership. We can provide them with that feedback almost immediately, and then make sure that it's a better fit for the students and their needs and their wants. And then, as you can see, that these tweaks allow for the program to better prepare the students and the trainees for after graduation. The goal is to really strengthen the program overall, to make sure it's very responsive, and just to make sure that every development that happens is rooted in data and it is an informed decision, so that all of this really tightens up the program to make it the strongest it can for the students, so that they can get the most out of it that they can. So let's talk about some of the evaluation activities that we've done. This is starting to get a little bit into the details, into the nitty-gritties, but I'm going to ease you guys into it. So our ongoing data collection and reporting has evolved over the years. So we started a lot with interviews. So our trainee interviews, we did one-on-one interviews in 2018 and 2019, and they were used largely to learn about the program, but they also helped inform our new survey that we did launch this year, just recently. And so this survey we pulled as much as we could from validated scales to ensure that, you know, we are hitting on topics that we think are important to measure. And some of these came from the trainee interviews of like, this is what I want to happen. This is what I want out of the program. And so we saw that natural progression from an interview to a survey. We also have annual exit interviews for trainees, so trainees that are leaving the program. This is also an ongoing and as needed basis. So as trainees exit the program, we touch base with them, we try to get their feedback and just capture, like, is it because they're graduating? Is it for another reason? How can this feedback be used to improve the program? And then lastly, we're also doing annual faculty interviews, or we started with them, and then we moved into surveys. We found that this was just a better modality, but also the interviews help develop the survey and understand what best to focus on. So these surveys are annual. They're intended to continue. And then so let's talk a little bit more. Oh, sorry, a note that I wanted to comment on for everybody that's on here where we have asked data from. We just want to say thank you, because your voices do matter. Pretty much all of our research activities are focused on getting feedback from you guys. We literally could not provide the recommendations that we have. We would not have the data that we have provided so far without your involvement, without your participation. So we really do appreciate that. And, you know, hearing from you and hearing your experiences has been vital to helping push the development of this program forward. Okay, so let's talk about some of the products that we prepared. So this is a big list. I'm not going to read every single thing, but I'll give you an overview. We're starting with the program logic model. I've talked about this a couple times so far. I think this is a good summary of it. It articulates program activities, outcomes, and assumptions. We update it on an annual basis based on new program elements. So again, think of it like a flow chart that explains what are the program activities, what are the intended outcomes, and mapping out how you get from those activities to the outcomes, how the program is thought to work or assumed to work. And the reason why this is updated annually is because sometimes we realize things don't work or they're not happening as they should. We realize that a pathway is not working as intended, and sometimes we need to do something else instead. But it's really meant to just kind of show how the program is ideally intended to work. So again, talking about the trainee interviews, which we've done in the past, just understanding the training experience of the program, which evolved into the survey. And so the survey is a little bit more directed. We're focusing specifically on things like program quality, career preparation, sense of belonging, science communication skills, indicators of success. And like I said before, we are using items from validated scales. This will be on an annual basis, and hopefully will help illuminate like how students evolve and develop through their time in the program. We've also developed an internship survey. So this goes out to the host organizations for internships with trainees, and it asks the hosts questions like, what were their expectations of when looking for an intern? Were these expectations met? What sort of activities did they have the interns do, to make sure to really get an understanding of, you know, what opportunities are out there and how to best pair them with the students and the student interests as well. Also mentioned the trainee exit survey, just getting feedback from graduates as they leave, and then our faculty survey. And so right now the survey is focusing on assessing preparedness, professional development, and overall experience. So this is a lot of products, and I think you guys are probably really questioning yourselves right now about like, okay, well, what does this mean? What is coming out of all of these products? Like, how has this changed the program itself? And so the results have actually led to several program developments and improvements so far. The trainee interview results, they've been used to help trainees track progress through the program. So early on, we heard feedback that that trainees wanted more ways to track how are they doing, if they are on track, what are the program requirements. And so we helped provide feedback and gave the program leadership the springboard to start implementing more of those. We also, these results have also been used to make program information more accessible. That's something that we also heard, was it students wanted or trainees wanted more information about what is needed, when is something needed by, what counts, what doesn't, who to go. So we provided that feedback as well. And the program really worked to kind of address those things and make things a little bit easier for the students as well. It, as we mentioned so far, informed the creation of measurement tools and then modifier seminars and symposia. So I think I gave this example a little bit earlier on in this presentation, but it has been used to understand what students want out of seminars and symposia, provide that feedback to leadership, so that we can give, so the program can give students what they're looking for out of these activities. And then also faculty interview and survey results. They were used to improve faculty support in their roles. We were able to get good feedback about what areas faculty wanted support. They wanted clear expectations, and then help leverage existing networks for internships. So we heard that feedback and provided it to the program leadership about, you know, what are some ways that, you know, everybody can pool their resources, pool their connections to really improve that network for students. And then the new trainee survey will provide data to illustrate if everybody is developing the skills that are hypothesized in the logic model. So that's going to be a little bit more quant focused, where our early results have been a little bit more qual focused. But this trainee survey is really going to help give the program some quantitative long-term data to really see how student change is occurring. So let's talk about the next steps. There is a little bit of detail here, so I'm not going to go through everything, but you can see, for example, spring 2021, we have the trainee survey plan, we have the faculty survey plan, we're going to revise the logic model again, we're going to administer the internship probe, we are presenting to the advisory board, we're revising the exit survey. Then we have other sort of reporting activities in summer of 2021, and really reporting out the findings, having the conversations around these. And then in the fall, we're going to start preparing for the final year of the evaluation. Again, we were planning on implementing the trainee survey. I think we're having a conversation about the timelines about that. And then we're also planning to join the advisory group convening. So as you can see, even though you may not see our faces on a daily basis, Kathleen, Natalie, and I, we're working usually behind the scenes to collect data, to provide feedback as much as we can, and to help in the presentation of findings, help in develop these recommendations, and develop these new tweaks to the program. So that is everything on my end.